All right, I see a couple of you guys hopping on. I'm gonna wait a couple minutes for you guys to hop on, and then I'll start the Gators' final reports. I'm Dylan Denmark. I just came from the game. I know it's a dark setting. I'm in a car right now. This is the best I could do. Following the Florida and Alabama game, which was a fantastic game. Probably one of the best Gator games I've ever been to. Alabama comes out on top though, 31-29, and what could have been easily a game that went in overtime if Florida actually made the field goal, the extra point. But things happen, and again, I'm going to wait a couple more minutes. I see a couple of you guys are hopping on. This is at the Voice of College Football with Mark Rogers. I'm on the official YouTube page. I'm usually on the Gator page and the SEC page after Florida games, but since this was such a big game, he wanted me to do the main page and the Gator page. But also, if you want to catch Bama coverage, you can go to their YouTube page on here as well, and they're going to be on the SEC channel. But I'm going to wait a couple more minutes, and we're going to get this thing rolling. Got a lot of thoughts and a lot of comments. Florida played out of their mind. I mean, if I told you at the beginning of the game that Florida goes down 21-3, you would have clapped your hand and you would have said that was it. But Florida didn't back down. They made it a hell of a ball game. It was exceptional the way they came back after the first quarter. At halftime, it was 21-9, and then in Florida, the way they were able to run the ball was insane to me. Alabama had a great, what was expected to be a really good run defense, and it didn't look like it. Florida ran the ball at will against Alabama, which was really, really surprising to me. So if you miss this show, you're always able to archive it later. Just go to at the Voice of College Football, or you can go to the Gator page. You can follow me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. So let's go ahead and get underway. We're a couple minutes in. We're going to go an hour long with the Gator post-game show, the Gators' final report. Okay, what killed Florida was the first half. Really, let me take that back. What killed Florida was the first quarter. In the secondary. In the secondary, Florida could not tackle in the open field. They just couldn't. And that was an issue last year, and Dan Mullen blamed it all on COVID. Every team dealt with COVID. You can't blame that on COVID this time around, obviously. There was so many times where there was a third down. You could have stopped them right before the first down, got them on fourth down. There was a couple of times where you had them before the goal line to stop them for a touchdown, and they went in. On the first drive, a deep ball to, I forget his name, number 1 for Alabama. Trey Dean, pass interference, extends the drive. And a lot of the stuff that Alabama did was a dink and dunk. And, I mean, you can't blame him that Florida gave him his own defense, and they just took what they gave him. Alabama never went deep because they never needed to. And in those first 3 drives, Alabama ran the ball really, really well, which they didn't do after the second quarter. Offensively, they went right down the field and made it a field goal game when the crowd was still in it. And the crowd was in the game early. It was the ground was shaking on Alabama's first drive when Alabama first got the ball. Then Florida goes down, kicks the field goal. Crowd was still in it. Then it was 14-3 and then 21-3. And then the crowd didn't get back into it until Malik Davis scored that first touchdown. Then Florida gets that 3-and out when Brent Cox got the sack. I'm looking through a couple of my comments, a couple of notes that I wrote. As if you're just joining us, this is the Gators' final report. We're at the Voice of College Football's YouTube page and the Gator page. Let's make sure we're liking and subscribing. I'm Dylan Denmark. I graduated from the University of Florida last year with a journalism degree. For the ones that don't know me, you can catch all the content I had this week. I interviewed Pat Dooley, formerly with the Gainesville Sun, and caught with Shane Matthews, former Florida quarterback, Tuesday and Wednesday. But yeah, the first drives for Florida and Alabama, both teams ran the ball really well. and the defensive backs were just atrocious. In the second drive, there was another penalty. It was Elam, I think, was getting a hold of one of the receivers. I think it was Mechie, I believe, for Alabama. It was a third down. That would have made it fourth down, brought the punt team. It extends the drive. Bama goes on to score a touchdown. And you can't have that. Florida, they needed to win time possession. They did. They needed to keep the turnovers to a minimum. They only had one. And they needed to get off the field on third down. And they were able to for the most part, but they didn't do it early. That's why they trailed 21-3. I'm trying to look at a couple more of my notes before we get to your guys' question comments. First half overall, it was a bit surprising to me. Florida goes 1 for 3. They go for 1 on fourth down. They dominated the stat sheet. 200 yards to Alabama's 175. But this was the biggest thing to me that surprised me. If you look at who caught the ball, Florida was able to run the ball well. Malik Davis had 56 yards. Emory Jones had 40. And AR didn't play much. And I'll get to that in a second. Gamble had 5 catches. Zipper had 2. Rick Wells had 1. And Whittemore had 1. No Henderson. No Copeland. There's another guy I'm missing. But those are 2 of your best guys, and they weren't able to get the ball. Now, I know Copeland, there was a pass interference that was on him at the 5-yard line. There was a couple of other targets that went to him, but he never got the ball. And in a big game, you got to give him the ball and make him do stuff. I didn't really understand that. But the thing with Alabama, what they ran mostly was man. They were playing press coverage most of the game. They definitely were in the second half. That's why you saw Emory run the ball so much, because on the outside, the receivers would go, the DBs go with them, and it's just the line and green grass in front of you. And Emory Jones did mostly a decent job of escaping and getting yards when he needed. Let's see. I touched on secondary, no catches. Let's see. I wish they would have ran the ball a little bit more in the first half. And another thing defensively for Florida, Ventrell Miller didn't play, and it didn't look like that he was missed a lot. Obviously he would have played a huge role. Zachary Carter was awful quiet in the game. Moon had a good game. Cox had a good game. And I said one of the keys to the game for Florida was getting pressure on Bryce Young, and there was Bryce Young. He's a dude. He is an absolute dude. He didn't look phased at all from that Gator crowd. I've been going to games since 2006. I'm only 23, granted, but the crowd didn't faze him at all. And one thing that surprised me were the amount of penalties that Alabama had. I forget what they ended up having total, but Alabama had a lot of penalties compared to what they're used to. Couple of offsides. There's 2 in the first 2 drives defensively for Alabama, and then there was a couple of false starts, but very, very unlike Alabama in that first half. The second half was an absolute doozy. If you count the last 3 drives for Florida outside of that one play, Florida went 75 yards, 99 yards, 75 yards. You had that bonehead play by Weston in the end zone where he drops it, bro, it was out of bounds. That was an absolute boneheaded play that could have killed Florida. Instead, they go right down the field. The first catch, I think, was Naquan Wright, where he got the first down and got out of bounds, was a 15-yard run, a catch out of the backfield. And right before that, Alabama just had an absolute great drive, 13 plays, 75 yards. The second half was absolutely amazing. There wasn't many empty seats, and the game was exceptional. It was back and forth. At least it felt like it in the stadium. I don't know how it was on TV. You can drop your comment as I'll get to your comments in a second and any questions you guys have. But it was 21-9, and then Florida scores on that first drive, I think, and it made it 21-16. And the momentum switched to Florida. I know Bama got a touchdown at 28-16, and Florida scores again. But it felt like in the entire second half, Florida had momentum the entire game until Alabama got that late first down with whatever it was, 2 minutes left, and they just ran out of time. Yeah, I see you guys talking about Anthony Richardson. I'll get to that in a moment. But the game, it was great. one of the best games I've ever been to. The run ability for Florida was outstanding. One of the best run defenses apparently going into the game was Alabama, and they sure didn't seem like it. The second, was it the last drive? No, it was the second to last drive when Florida had a 3rd and 19. Emory Jones connects with Whittemore, I think it was. It was a 4th and 2 and connects with Whittemore again. And Emory played really well. I know he had that one bad interception. That was one bad overthrow he had. But Florida, there was one of the times late in the game where it was right at the sticks, I think on a 4th down for Alabama. It was a 3rd and short or 4th and short. And that cost Florida late in the game, late in the 4th quarter. Bryce Young going toward the end zone when he threw it to one of his tight ends. But Florida played exceptionally well. I mean, if I would have told you, like I said in the beginning, if Florida goes up 21-3 first quarter, most fans would have said it's done with. You could have called it a wrap, and that would have been it. And Alabama would have been on cruise control going into next week. But that definitely wasn't the case. Florida, their run defense was outstanding. I'm going to look up how many stats Florida had, or excuse me, how many rushing yards Alabama had. It wasn't much. In the first half, let me check here. In the first half, Alabama only had 30 rushing yards. Florida had 100. Alabama had 6 penalties for 40 yards in the first half. Florida did a lot well. They just trailed early, and a lot of that has to do with the secondary. You can blame whoever you want, but I mean, a lot of those plays, I know a lot of people want to blame Todd Grantham and the coaching, but when a coach's job is to put players in position to succeed, and there was a lot of times in that first half, and I'm a key in on the first half because that's where Florida lost the game. It was 21-3. And Florida, you can't catch up against a team like Alabama. Well, when you're down, let me correct myself. When Florida is in position to make plays and get the defense off the field or force the Alabama offense to kick a field goal, you have to take it. And Florida didn't do that. There was a pick play that where I think it was Helm and Elam. I know it was Elam. It was another defensive back that got tied up. There was 2 PIs that cost Florida. I think both were on 3rd down. And you just can't have that against Alabama. You have to play a perfect game against Alabama to beat them. Now, Alabama didn't play well either. But, I mean, if you look back at the last time an SEC East team beat Alabama, it was from Stephen Garcia in South Carolina, and they played an absolutely perfect game. And also, the teams that have beaten Alabama have been mobile quarterbacks. Emory Jones is one of them, and generational talents. Emory Jones isn't a generational talent. He's just a good talent. Anthony Richardson is a generational talent. We'll get to that in a moment. He didn't play a single snap. And I saw him do a backflip before the game. I was at the game, so I didn't see it. But yeah, Florida played exceptionally well. I know there's no such thing as moral victories. But Florida played exceptionally well, especially down 21-3. As I'm trying to get a couple of stats from the Florida-Alabama game. I want to know how many rushing yards Alabama did end up having. It was 91. So they had 30 in the first half, 61 in the second half. Alabama ended up with 81 yards and penalties. That's not something you see every day. I'd like to know the last time Alabama had that many yards and penalties. Florida won time of possession. Florida won first downs. Florida won the box score, but they trailed early 21-3. I'm going to get to a couple of your comments here. Jordan says stats say Florida won the game. Refs gave Bama that win. It's getting obvious at this point. There was one play was in the second half where it was a 4th and short, and they corrected it. He gave Alabama the first down after it was supposed to be 4th and 1. But Florida had plenty of opportunities. There was 2 3rd and longs, I think, on that last drive that Alabama had where they ended up kicking a field goal to give them 31 points. You got to hold them to 3. What makes good teams great is this is really more of an NFL stat, but this pertains to college too. when you're in the red zone, you can move in between the 30s down the field all you want. But when you get in the red zone, it's that defense holding the offense to 3 points. And Alabama did that early. Florida was at the 40-yard line a couple of times, held them, got them a turnover on downs. They got an interception. And Alabama just scored mostly touchdowns. They kicked the field goal to go up 8, and then Florida couldn't come back from that. Couple more. Let's see here. Jets here on meaningful conversions. Bama was 8 of 12. I think 8 of 13. This is not tolerable any longer. He has to be fired immediately. Yeah, I thought Todd Grantham should have been let go last year. Obviously, he's buddy with Dan Mullen. Now, I don't know how long that relationship can last. If Dan Mullen wants to win a national title, play and win an SEC, but I thought the defense played really well today. That's not forgiving Todd Grantham. But again, like I said earlier, if you didn't hear what I said, if you're just joining us, I'm Dylan Denmark. Live streaming at the Voice of College Football and at the Gator page. Let's make sure we're subscribing and liking the page. There were plays to be made. Florida's defense mostly ran zone in the beginning, and Alabama took what they gave them. And there were a lot of plays where Florida just couldn't open field tackle. That's not coaching. Now, that's not to say that Todd Grantham could have done something different, but a coach's job is to put the players in position to make plays for them to succeed. And there were plays to be made, and Florida's secondary didn't do that. And I talked with Pat Dooley Tuesday, and he said that was his biggest question and Florida's biggest weakness, and it definitely showed early. It was the 2 PI penalties. Alabama never went over the top. That was one of the biggest surprises to me. No big plays at all in the first half for either team. The only big play was when Bryce Young threw it deep, and there was a pass interference on Trey Dean, which I didn't see. But I was at the game for the ones joining us, so I didn't have the pleasure of seeing all the replays. But it was one of the best games for Florida that I've ever been to. I've been to going to a lot of games since 2006. I'm only 23, so I'm showing my age a little bit. But Florida played really well. It just ran out of time after they trailed 21-3. Yeah, this is one comment I like. For the love of the burn, Florida blaming all the refs now. They had plenty of chances to win the game and they didn't. That's exactly correct. I'm never a person to blame it on somebody else. Now, I mean, if it's obviously like Ohio State, Miami national championship game, that's one thing. But I mean, Florida had plenty of third downs to get off the field and third and longs. They didn't. There was a 2-point conversion debacle. That was very odd. I think Emory just wanted to on those read options. It's hard sometimes. Emory on those plays, you sometimes you put in his gut the running back and you pull it, but it's already the Pierce might think he has it, and then you both just muddle huddle to the line of scrimmage, which is exactly what you don't want. But I didn't see the replay, but I was listening to the radio call with Mick Hubert, and they said that there might have been a crease had Pierce gotten the ball with a full head of steam. I don't know. Obviously, it doesn't matter because Florida didn't get it, and then Florida didn't get the stuff when they needed. After that, just trying to get to a couple of more of you guys' comments. This is the Gators' final reports. If you're just joining us, I'm Dylan Denmark. I graduated from the University of Florida last year. And this is our third post-game show. We do this for an hour after every game. I'm on the Gator page and at the Voice of College Football. Make sure you guys check out all of our post-game shows, not only on here, but on other show channels as well. And Iowa has one. Alabama has one if you're looking for some Alabama coverage. I'm doing Florida coverage for the most part. Excuse me. And the Alabama coverage right now is on the SEC channel as well. So if you're able to not see it live or you want to see it later, all of this content is always archived to see it later. One thing again, if you're just joining us, I'm Dylan Denmark. I host a podcast on the Mark with Denmark. I'll drop the link in the description after the show. One of the things that Pat Dooley said, and a lot of it rang true, Tuesday when I spoke with him that you can catch on the Gators, the YouTube page here, the Voice of College Football. Florida needed to play ahead. They never did. The secondary was not good, and that showed early. They played better as they went, and they needed to run the football, and they did. You just can't trail 21-3 against the Nick Saban and the dynasty in Alabama and expect to win that game. But they played really well, and we'll see. Florida still controls their own destiny. They still have everything ahead of them. It's one loss. It's one loss in the West, so it doesn't matter what you do in the East. If you win out, you go to Atlanta, and more than likely you will play Alabama in Atlanta, and we'll see. I think Florida definitely turned a lot of heads. Most predictions and from a lot of the experts predicted Alabama to cover or at least win by 10. And Alabama couldn't run the ball. Florida's defense played really great after the first quarter. And Florida, the way they were able to run the ball, and Emory Jones played decent. I know that he had one interception, but you got to give Florida a lot of credit for not fighting. And I'll mention the crowd here in a second. That's what I was trying to think of in the last 2 minutes. I asked Shane Matthews this. You can catch that conversation as well at the Gator page. Former Florida quarterback that played at Florida before Danny Werfel in the early 90s. I don't think the crowd affected Bryce Young as much as it did the offensive line. And that's what Shane Matthews talked about in the conversation we had Wednesday. You know, you'll see a lot of times the offensive line holding hands because they can't hear the snap count, and that crowd was really loud. That crowd hasn't been that loud since 2019 when Florida played Auburn, and there was a lot of energy around that game going into the week. And I was a student at the time at the University of Florida. There was a lot of penalties from Alabama. I can't see exactly what the penalties were, but there was a couple of delay of games, a couple of false starts. They weren't able to run the ball. And I think the crowd had a big reason to do with that. And the crowd was a factor in the beginning. On that first drive, Alabama goes down 7-0 because they got the ball first. Then it was 7-3. Then Alabama went 14-3, 21-3. Crowd went out of it. All of the air. But every time Alabama would come back on the field, the crowd, it wasn't the same. The energy wasn't there. And then after that, Alabama goes 3-0. Brent Cox has a huge sack. And right before that sack, Malik Davis scored that nice, 15, 20-yard touchdown, make it 21-9. That went to half. Florida comes back. First drive in the second half, scores a touchdown and made it 21-16. And from there, Florida had all the momentum in the second half. Am I in a closet? No, I'm not actually in a car. This was the best I had to do. I came straight from the game, and the house I stay at, pretty much like a frat house. Not exactly a frat house, but this is the best I could do for internet. But I'm giving you guys content, which is the biggest thing. As if you're just joining us, this is the Gators final report. I'm inside a car. That's why it's pitch black behind me, and I'm holding up. I got two lights in my iPhone camera. I'm Dylan Denmark. You can catch me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. Let me drop my Twitter handle right here. I graduated from the University of Florida last year. I've got my degree in journalism, had a lot of my work with internships in Jacksonville, and a guy by the name of Terry Norvell, who now does a show with Steve Spurrier and Shane Matthews. Make sure you guys are subscribing and giving a thumbs up, liking this page on the Gator page and at the Voice of College Football for Mark Rogers. As we do this for about another 30 minutes, and then I'll sign off, and then I'll get out of here. But guys, can continue dropping your comments and questions after what was probably the best game I've ever seen Florida in person. I've been to Florida, Tennessee on that Hail Mary. That game didn't really mean much after. It was just a great play. That game really wasn't that good. It was just a great ending. 06 through 08, I didn't go to the LSU game. I'm only 23, so I haven't seen a lot of games. But this was Florida-Auburn was probably the best game I've been to. The crowd, beginning to end, in this Alabama game, it was exceptional. There was no big plays. There was a lot of penalties, which is you really don't want to see when two great teams play. But nonetheless, Florida played really well. They just ran out of time after they trailed 21-3. Let's see, WT here. He said Bama had their vulnerability against the run exposed. Lots of good backs in the SEC this year too. Things could get interesting. Yeah. Not to get too off topic, but most people, they'll say in the preseason, the experts, Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. Bama clearly was tested today. Clemson's lost. Ohio State lost last week, and Oklahoma was tested last week's Tulane. That was a 40-35 point ball game. So this can get really, really dicey. I don't know who's going to test Alabama going forward. Ole Miss, maybe. They talk about a high opponent offense. I think that Ole Miss can definitely give Ole Miss can definitely give Alabama trouble. But yeah, this is gonna be a great college football season. It's only been week 3, and we've seen a lot of things happen so far. Yes, the dungeon. It's probably the only time I'll ever do this. I'm in a car. I went to the game, so I came. I walked about 20 minutes to the house. I used to stay out in Gainesville because I graduated last year from the University of Florida. But I got my iPhone light for production. Got my 2 lights here. I'm in a Chevy, and I'm trying to get the job done. As our house right now is a party house, pretty much a frat house for the most part. Yes, nice point here. I forgot about this. Travis Williams dropped a comment, and I noticed a lot of passes dropped by Bama. One in particular, I forget his name, number 18, that dropped that wide open touchdown. That would have sealed the game. I forget who it was covering, but there were 2 receivers. It was 18, and I think it was number 1. They were going right down the left seam because they were going to the end zone right toward me because I was in the corner, and then they split. And when they split, the DB had to make a decision, and obviously you had to pick one, and 18 went straight to the middle of the field and dropped that pass. Had he caught it, that would have been the ball game pretty much. That would have sealed it. Florida would have had no shot. But you make mistakes. Florida's definitely not going to gripe about it, and gave them a chance. They went down, scored a touchdown, and and missed the 2-point conversion, which I didn't understand. I didn't see the post game, as I'll try to hop on Twitter to see what Dan Mullen said, but I didn't understand that. It was a read option. Emory Jones had to make a decision, and he didn't. You either gotta pull it or you gotta go. You can't do both. Let's see here. Nick De La Torre. I'm trying to read a couple of comments from Dan Mullen. In the meantime, this is the Gators' final report. Keep dropping your questions and comments, as this is Dylan Denmark, the voice of college football. This is the Gators' final report. You can follow me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. Let's make sure we're liking and subscribing to the channel. We're trying to get our Gator page to 1,000 subscribers. We've seen a lot of content move there. You can catch my conversation with Pat Dooley on Tuesday. I caught it with Shane Matthews on Wednesday. And I'm trying to get an interview or 2 during the week before our post-game show on Saturday. But in the meantime, I'm trying to catch up with Dan Mullen, what he said on Twitter. Mullen asked if there's closer to having a consistent champion contender. He said, quote, getting there, had the opportunity to play for an SEC championship, fell 6 points, played with the number 1 team in the country, and came up 2 points short. He said they need to get to the point where they're winning those games. Yeah. And Pat Dooley, in the conversation I had with him Tuesday, I asked him, I said straight up, what Florida need to do to make this a competitive game? Florida did that. Pat Dooley said they need to play from ahead, and Florida never played from ahead. And when you're playing a dynasty in Alabama, you have to play from ahead. Let's see here. Yeah, so going off what I said, I know there's a couple of comments that didn't like with Todd Grantham. He said, quote, this is what Dan Mullen said. I thought Todd and his staff had a great scheme today, putting guys in position to succeed today. And that's what he's supposed to do. I said that earlier in the show. Football is about three things: alignment, assignment, execution. That Florida lined up for the most part from what I saw. They had their assignments well. They just didn't execute. When it's 3rd and 8 and you got to make an open field tackle, you got to make that open field tackle to make it 4th down and either force the field goal or force the punt team. There was, in that first 3 drives, there was 2 PIs. One was a deep shot. One was a 3rd and 5 on a comeback. Elam was covering, I think it was Mechie. And Florida didn't have a lot of penalties, costly penalties. And I think the game was lost right there, 21-3. You lose 31-29. Florida made it. What was the closest they made it? I think it was 21-19. No, that couldn't have been 21-19. It was 21-16. So you just can't do that against Alabama. On a 2-point play, there were 2 missed assignments. Dan Mullen said he won't get into it. Guys lined up wrong on one guy, went the wrong way. So there you go. I just said football is all about 3 things: alignment, assignment, execution. One guy lined up wrong. One guy went the wrong way. Man, you can't execute that. Dan Mullen. So I'm going to get next in this about Anthony Richardson. Mullen was asked about Anthony Richardson playing, not playing. Says a hamstring isn't like other injuries. Some injuries you can't make worse. And it's pain management. A hamstring like Richardson has can quickly make worse. Yeah, so it seems like Dan Mullen is definitely playing the long game with the hamstring with Anthony Richardson. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, and you see the result of the game, and you obviously, Anthony Richardson should have played. And I'll tell you this. Emory Jones, there was a couple of runs he had, mainly in the second half, where Bama was going man to man, and which happens when you go pretty much it was cover 1, cover 0. Alabama was mostly running, which means it's man coverage on the outside. And if you don't have a guy, you're blitzing, or in cover 1, you're man to man outside, 1 safety over top, and then the rest of the guys are going for the quarterback. There were a lot of times where Emory Jones ran the ball 6, 7, 8 yards, maybe 12. And I looked to my buddy and I was like, man, if Anthony Richardson had ran the ball there, he might have been gone. And he might have. He could have been the difference in the game. And I thought Florida, like Pat Dooley said Tuesday in the interview I had with him at the Gator page at the Voice of College Football, you can check out archive 10, 15-minute conversation. Florida needed to have 2 quarterbacks to play. They used it the last 2 weeks, but Dan Mullen was playing a long game with his hamstring. It's easy to say now that he should have played, and that would have been the difference maker. Who knows? But it's also, it would have obviously sucked for him to play and the second play pull his hamstring and him be out the next 8 weeks. I'd rather Anthony Richardson be good for the next couple of weeks, him be close to 100% that Florida-Georgia game, because that's going to decide the East and who goes to Atlanta. Because this game, yes, it matters, but it doesn't really matter because Florida's in the East, Bama's in the West. And if you win all your games in the East, you control your own destiny. You're in the driver's seat. You go to Atlanta, and you get a rematch if you're able to beat Georgia, more than likely against Alabama. Trying to get a couple more comments from what Dan Mullen had to say in his press conference. But in the meantime, guys, let's make sure we're subscribing and liking our pages at the Voice of College Football. As I'm in the dungeon right now, and I'm just kidding. I'm in a car as I came straight from the game. I'm Dylan Denmark. You can follow me on Twitter here at Dylan_Denmark. I'm in a car right now. It's the only place I could find as I ran straight here after the game. One of the best games for Florida I've ever seen, as I'm trying to catch up with your comments now. Florida played well. They couldn't come back after a 21 lead. And hopefully we get to see them again. I don't think a lot of people expect Florida to play with them in the SEC Championship, which was a 6-point game. And I don't think a lot of people saw this as a 2-point game, especially if you missed it. What I said earlier, 21-3, first quarter, that was chalk. You could have that was a wrap. And Florida fought, and the crowd definitely played a huge factor. Not Dan Mullen. Alabama had 80 yards in penalties and 11 penalties. Very Alabama, not like them. Let's see here. Defense played well. Yep, I see Pimp and Patty. Defense did play well against a high opponent offense. I was surprised too. Florida was able. Now, I thought one of the keys to the game was going to be Florida's front seven living in the backfield. They did a decent job of that. They got a couple of sacks, a couple of pressures on Bryce Young, but Bama could not run the ball at all. They did the first two drives, and then after that, I don't know what happened. If they changed the scheme, or if they just tightened up and they finally saw the film and did their assignments. But Florida played well defensively. They only gave up 10 points after the first quarter, I believe, for most of the game. And you can't complain. I know a lot of people want to say here, like Jet, the game was Grantham's fault. Bama converts 60% of the pass, 60% of third downs, rather. He gets smoked against every decent offense. Some of that is true, although all of it isn't. Jet, if you, I know it sounds like a broken record, but Jet, if football is about three things, it's about alignment, assignment, execution. And if you line up right, which Florida did mostly defensively from what I saw, I was at the game. Your assignment, which Florida did decent, but then you get to execution. And Florida did not execute. A coach's job is to have his players in position to succeed. And when it's 3rd and 8 and it's 3rd and 4 and you continue to run that flat route and you have a position to make a tackle, Travis Johnson had one. I think Helm had one. There were a couple other players. You got to make the play. You have to get off the field, or you have to force Alabama to kick a field goal, because the difference between 7 and 3 points is huge, and Florida lost by 2. So I'm a little with you. Definitely last year, but definitely Florida's defense is making a lot of strides compared to what they did last year. Moon played really well. I thought Moon and Carter had to play exceptionally well in this game to have a chance to beat Alabama and make it a game in the second half. And Carter was really quiet, but Moon played well. Cox played well. Diabate had a decent game. Elam, there was one play in the second half. He made the play, he got hurt. Where it was a deep post. That was fantastic. No other player for Florida could have made that play. And that's the reason why Elam's a first round talent, projected to go top 10. That was huge. I'm trying to get to a couple more of you guys' comments. Yeah, so I know a lot of people want to keep harping on Todd Grantham's defense. They played well. They started slow. Again, if I like to play this when the game is when it's so Florida fans mostly are full of emotion, because fan is short for fanatic. If I go through the box score and I tell you this, if I said Florida had more first downs, they had over 100 more yards, they dominated the run, they had more time of possession, and they had less penalties, but Florida had 1 turnover, Florida fans would have taken that all day, 10 times out of 10, and they would have thought they had a good shot, which they did, but you trailed 21-3, and that was the deciding factor. Third down, Bama 7 for 13. I wonder, let me check here, how many of those third downs were converted in those first 3 drives, because Bama went touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. I'm trying to see here. I probably won't have time. Bama got 1, 2, 3, 4. They had about 4 to 5 third down conversions in those first 3 drives. And that was the game. Florida had to play from ahead to have any shot, and they didn't do that. Let's see here. Let's see here. Jet again. Coaches are in charge of execution as well. They are responsible for everything. Go ask Spurrier. Ask him about putting Doug Johnson in a game when he said when Doug apologized for throwing a pick. Yeah, I mean, shoulda, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But, I mean, again, if I told you it's a 2-point game, Florida dominated the box score, I think Florida would have taken that. But Ventrell Miller didn't play, and again, not making excuses. I wonder how much of an impact he would have had. It doesn't seem like he would have had much of one had he played. Because Florida's run defense was outstanding. Alabama was held to less than 100 yards, 30 in the first half, 60 in the second. Trying to get to a couple more comments and checking Twitter for any comments that I didn't able to see, because I went to the game and I ran straight here. As if you're just joining us, this is the Gators Final Report. I'm Dylan Denmark. You can catch me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. I do this for 1 hour after every single Gator game. We're going to be on the Gator channel, and right now I'm on Mark Rogers' official YouTube channel at The Voice of College Football. And we do this every Saturday. Catch my content on the Gator channels. I caught up with Pat Dooley Tuesday, Shane Matthews on Wednesday, former Florida quarterback. 2 names that Florida fans should know. I say that a little bit sarcastically, as I'm in a dungeon right now. I'm in a car, as this is the best I could do to give you guys a show. As I went to the game. Exactly. Yeah, Pimp and Patty. Give the people what they want. Give them a show. Yes, sir. It could be a Category 5 going on behind me, a hurricane. I'm giving you a show. Got to give the people what they want. Looking at a couple more comments. Yeah, third down conversion. So let me go a little more into depth about third down. Third down conversions in football are won on first and second down. If you have successful first and second downs, the goal is to get to third and manageable and third and short. And third and manageable is 3rd and 6 and shorter. And Alabama was able to do that on their first 3 drives when they scored 3 touchdowns. Florida was not. And there's also times on third down, Elam had a pass interference. Trey Dean had a pass interference. And you can't do that against great teams in Alabama. You have to play a perfect game, and you got to catch a couple breaks. I think the only breaks that Florida had when it came to Alabama was the drop touchdown. That was the biggest one by number 18. There was the penalties. Alabama had a lot of penalties. I think a lot of it had to do with the home crowd. I'm trying to think of a couple other ones, but yeah, I mean, it was just I know I keep saying I sound like a broken record, but the 21-3, you just can't overcome that. One thing, let me look at the box score again. Because in the first half, what was surprising to me was Florida ran the ball well in both halves. I wish they would run the ball a little bit more in the first half. But your main receivers, Copeland, Henderson, Zipper caught 2. There's another receiver. I can't think of his name, but Henderson and Copeland. Those guys, they didn't have a catch in the first half. And in big games, I understand Dan Mullen has a script and how he wants the game to go. And if you notice, I'm not a big believer in first half halftime adjustments. Not a believer that I think it's too blown out of proportion. Because Florida came out in the second half, they went touchdown, 75, 99, 75-yard touchdown run or drives. I just think that's execution. I don't think it's, Dan Mullen has a plan first half. All right, let's throw it out. We have a whole new second half. I'm not a big believer in that. But Florida played well in that second half, and Copeland got the ball On that first ball, that first play was a deep ball PI, and Copeland ended up with one catch for 10 yards. That was surprising. Henderson, one catch, 18 yards. Not a lot of completed passes, and no AR-15. Anthony Richardson. That's what I haven't talked about. That was the biggest let me slow down for a second. Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson, trying to confuse the two names. I think Dan Mullen's playing the long game. With Anthony Richardson's hamstring, there were a lot of plays. And I said this earlier in the show. If Emory Jones, there were a couple of runs he had 5, 6, 12 yards in the second half in particular, because Alabama ran a lot of man defense. So if you're for example, cover one, you're outside in the man, one safety over top. If you don't have a man and you're not the safety, you're going for the quarterback. Cover zero, same thing, no safety, but everybody's going for the quarterback with the ball, and you just have your 5 DBs covering your receivers. Emory Jones, there were a lot of times where he ran a quarterback draw and got yards. If Anthony Richardson were in the game and he had those opportunities, there were a lot of times where I thought, and I turned to my buddy Graham, Anthony Richardson would probably still be running. Anthony Richardson would probably score a touchdown. Now it's easy to say shoulda, woulda, coulda right now, but you just I think them on the hamstring, it's easy to say right now. He should have played. Florida could have won the game, probably. But if you throw Anthony Richardson in the game, you can't risk that. Me personally, I would much rather have Anthony Richardson healthy, not play him right now, and then have him ready for Georgia. Because that Florida-Georgia game in Jacksonville will determine everything for the East, to go to Atlanta, your college football playoff implications, and then obviously, hopefully, whoever you're playing, probably Alabama again. So I think that would be that's the most conservative role to play. But I would side with Dan Mullen there. I would have liked to have seen Emory play, but I'm fine with it. Jet is dropping a lot of comments, guys. Let's make sure we're subscribing and dropping a like at the Voice of College Football and on the Gator page at the Voice of College Football. I'm Dylan Denmark, giving you post-game show and content throughout the week. Check out my conversations with Pat Dooley and Shane Matthews. That's on the Gator page. And subscribe to the Gator page. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We've had a lot of content coming your way soon. Jet said, I got the impression that Bama schemed to play soft on the run and defend the pass more, thinking they had bad matchups with their linebackers. Yeah, I didn't have the advantage of seeing a lot of replays, but Florida, it shocked me how consistent they ran the ball. What if you look at the last 2 seasons, Florida could not run the ball at all. And a lot of that had to do with their offensive line. They just couldn't do anything. This, I think, is a little different because you have a true running quarterback in Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson. I know he didn't play today, but he did the last 2 weeks. And Florida defensively, they played soft. They played a lot of zone. That's why Alabama went dink and dunk. I don't know exactly what Florida changed in the second half or after the first quarter, after they trailed 21-3. Because I'm watching the game, and as soon as the plays out, I'm jotting down notes, and I'm trying to, because I can't remember everything. I've got a lot on my mind, and then I try to go with the scripts in order from the game. But Florida, they played well, and Alabama definitely does not have one of the best run defense, and I think this is great for college football. Most people, if you would ask them, I know I'm getting off topic from the Gator game, they would have told you, oh, Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, maybe Georgia. Bama was tested today. Not a lot of people thought. Clemson already has a loss. Ohio State lost last week. Oklahoma played a really tough game with Tulane. That I think that's good for the sport of college football. And the crowd today, I don't know how it was on the TV, guys. You can drop me a comment how the crowd looked on CBS. It was absolutely electric. I've been going to the game since 2006. I'm only 23. I graduated from the University of Florida last year. I know I'm showing my age to some of you. There's only one game that's ever been like that, and that was the Florida-Auburn game 2 years ago that I've been to. I know there were a lot of games from 2006 and Tebow era with Urban Meyer, but there was no close games at home. And in the last couple of years, Joe Burrow, when he came in 2018 with LSU, that was a great play. The game was really good, but the crowd, it's no comparison to compared to what it was like against Auburn 2019 and today. And Alabama, when they went up 21-3, took the crowd out of the game quick. The crowd was really loud. You could feel the ground shaking, the stadium shaking rather, and it's so they went up 7-0, and then it was 7-3. Crowd was still in it, and then it was 14-3, 21-3. Crowd went out of it until Malik Davis scores that touchdown. We get that sack from Brenton Cox. Alabama's offense goes 3 and out. And then the crowd slowly got back into it. Then it was 21-16. Then it was 28-16. And then it was 28-23. And, yeah, definitely, Jet. Thanks for dropping a lot of these comments. The crowd was definitely affected for Alabama. A lot of penalties, 80 yards. I think it was 81 to be exact. Very un-Alabama-like. I know it's not a word, but that's I know Nick Saban's not going to be happy. I know he blew up on the sideline at one point. As we're about to wrap this thing up, this is the Gators' final report. I'm Dylan Denmark. You can catch my podcast. Let me drop it here. On the Mark with Denmark. It took me about 2 seconds to come up with that name. Very clever. As I just talk college football. That's my main focus. I've talked with guys like Leon Searcy, Terry Norvell, who hosts a show with Steve Spurrier, Shane Matthews. I've caught up with Pat Dooley, Shane Matthews this week as I post content on there, the YouTube channel, and on the Gator page at the Voice of College Football. And we try to get out as much content as I can around my work schedule. Again, for the people that don't know me, you're just hopping along. I'm Dylan Denmark. I graduated from the University of Florida last year with a journalism degree. Most of my experience is in radio. I've interned, if you're familiar with the Jacksonville area, in 1010XL and what was Sports Radio 930. I've worked with guys like Brent Beard, Matt Hayes, Joe Coward, Leon Searcy, and then Brent Beard gave me the honor to do this. So I appreciate Mark Rogers letting me do this live stream as I'm from the dungeon, as of forget who it was that commented that, as I'm actually in a car as I was at the game, and I had to come straight here. I wasn't able to get to a house. I couldn't get in a building. But hey, we got to give the people what they want. It's, with the internet, the World Wide Web, you can do a lot of things. So, any last questions or comments as we're about to wrap this up at the Gators final report with your boy here, Dylan Denmark. But again, Florida played well. Trailed 21-3 early. I was surprised that Florida never really went deep. They ran the ball really well. Defense played exceptionally well after they trailed 21-3. And Florida they were a prime opportunity to make some plays in the open field, but the secondary played poorly in those first 3 drives, which scored 3 touchdowns. They could have held Alabama to field goals or gotten them a punt, 2 PI penalties. And you can't do that against a great team. You can't beat yourself, especially against a team like Alabama that does not beat itself. Let's see here. Yeah, Jed, no, you're not hogging the comments, man. Thanks for dropping as much content. I'm always open. So this is it for us, the Gators Final Report. Make sure you guys are liking, subscribing to the channels at the Voice of College Football and the Gator page. You can catch my podcast on the Mark with Denmark, as I'm Dylan Denmark. Signing off. If you're able to catch the beginning of this show, make sure you can catch the archives anytime. I'd like to thank Mark Rogers for giving me the opportunity to broadcast as I'm in the dungeon in the car. And that'll do it. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed the game as much as I did. And so long.